board meeting of Anderson District 3 to order. I will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Baltnight, would you mind praying for us?
Absolutely, no problem. Let's pray, shall we? God, you're amazing. We love you. God, we thank you for being so good to us here. We ask for your wisdom, your knowledge, your understanding, God. Help us to steer this district in the direction that you would have us go. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Next item on the agenda is the actual consider of the agenda. I trust everyone had the opportunity to take a look at it, what was put out there. I'll accept a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
A motion from Mr. Holbrook, a second from Mr. Watt. Is there any discussion? None. All in favor? Next item is the approval of the March 11th, 2024 meeting minutes. Again, I trust everyone had the opportunity to look over that as it was put out in your packets.
I make a motion we approve the minutes
I have a
as
motion
presented.
from Mr. Baltnight to accept as presented, and a second from Ms. Arnold. Any discussion? None. All in favor? All right, here comes the good part. Commendations for those of you that are our shining stars.
That was the best part. All right, tonight. Okay, tonight we're always honored to be able to honor our students. And when I look around this room tonight, this is exactly the reason we knew we needed a new boardroom. So that we could, when we honored outstanding accomplishments, we had room for parents and family to come. And so we have a great group of students tonight. And so when I call your name, I'll ask you to come up, and Mr. Owens will give you a certificate, and we'll ask you to line up so that we can get a group picture. I do want to say, as we honor this group, March was Music and Art Month for schools. And so you see a display of some artwork out here that was in the county show, and we honored some of those students last month. And so I think it's fitting that we honor our color guard that were the 2024 3A color guard class champions. And it's just another of the impressive things that's happening in our band and color guard program. So when I call your name, please come up. We're excited to honor you. And we will start with Maddie Jones. Rihanna Davis. Haley Bissett. Haley Andrevet. Haley Paul, 3 Haleys in a row. Ansley Hamby. Kagan Emery. Katrina Whitworth. Tanya Whitworth. Tanaya, I meant to ask you how to say your name before we started, so I apologize for that. Claudia Davis. Aubrey Wilkinson. Miley Jones. And then Mr. Travis Waters, our director. And Ava Floyd, who is an assistant to the color guard class champions. Now, I understand you all have a banner we need to get before we take a picture here. Mr. Owens, I'll go here.
Give us a number one.
Oh, you get so fast, you forget to eat.
I put on 15 of what I lost in them crazy puffs.
And Mr. Waters asked me to announce that they're going to perform their show this Thursday evening at 6:30 in the gym at Crescent for the community. So if you know of anyone who, if you can come, please come. If you know of anyone else who might be interested, please pass the word. All right, at this time, we have two staff members that have earned some recognitions that we want to celebrate and honor tonight. And so to give more specific information, I'm going to turn the podium over to Miss Lee Burton, who sponsors the CREATE program in the district.
Hello, everybody. This is an honor and a privilege to get to present to you two very special ladies to our district. So first, we're going to ask Miss Marilyn Thrasher to come over there to Miss Hipp and Chairman Owens. So guys, this is Marilyn Thrasher, and she started the SC CREATE program in 2021, and she will be a 2024 graduate just in the next week, in end of April. She will graduate with her bachelor's degree in multi-categorical special education. So she has maintained a 3.95 or higher GPA throughout the entire program. She's going to graduate summa cum laude, and she earned their Purple Seal Award, which means that she maintained a GPA of 3.5 throughout her whole program, passing the praxis, passing the PLT on the first try, and graduating magna cum laude. So very proud of her for being a part of this program and working in our district and getting her certification in special education while she worked. So we are proud to say that she will be a special education teacher at Crescent High School next year. So thank you, Marilyn, and thank you to everybody who supported Marilyn on this journey. Okay. So Miss Sandy Thrasher also started the SC CREATE program in 2021 and will graduate April 26, 2024 from, both of these young ladies will graduate from Columbia College. The program is sponsored through the state, through Columbia College, also with a bachelor's degree in multi-categorical special education. Sandy's had a few awards along the way. She was the highest GPA award winner in 2022. She was the highest GPA junior class award winner in 2023. She earned the highest GPA senior class award in 2024. And just this weekend, she was awarded the 2024 overall education major of the year at Columbia College. She's graduating with a 4.0 GPA and will graduate summa cum laude also, and also awarded the Purple Seal Award. So we are very proud of Sandy. Sandy will also be a special education teacher at Crescent High School in the fall. So Crescent is a lucky school. We're a lucky district, but especially Crescent being a lucky school. And Sandy said that her favorite memory was when she passed her first elementary education math class with an A. She thought, okay, now I know I can do this, because maybe she wasn't sure, but once she passed that one, she knew she could do it. And she also says to advise for future CREATE students to go for it and don't ever think it's too late to accomplish your dream. So thank you, Sandy. Congratulations.
We want to thank all of our students and our staff for coming tonight. At this time, you are welcome to stay for the remainder of this meeting, but if you would like to not stay, this would be an appropriate time to step out. Thanks again and congratulations.
Gouged my whole back leg. Oh, last night, ramshacked myself.
Thank you.
Clear room,
Yes, ma'am.
Lord have mercy.
I was wondering if she was Miss Thrasher. It used to be the secretary's daughter.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Thank you for being here.
Bye, Ms. Roberts. Thank you for coming. I understand.
Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments, and we do not have anyone signed up to speak this evening, so we can jump right into the reports, and we'll start off with a financial report from Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will get us started with the general fund report. Through the end of March, our revenues exceed our expenditures by $3,458,026, which is the best position we've been at this point in the year in the time that I've been here, possibly ever. So I know we went over it last month for the major factors as the reason for that being our property tax collections, that state aid to classrooms amount being over, coming in better than expected, that food service fringe guidance, and then also that interest revenue we're earning at the state level. So as you can see, $3.4 million. This time last year, we were about, is this working? Yeah, okay, sorry. We were about 2.5 million last year, 2.8 million the year before. So a good bit ahead of where we were the past couple of years. However, we do have one timing difference that's making us look a little bit better than we actually are. We had the manufacturer's depreciation reimbursement, that item we talked about a good bit last budget season, how that was changing. So we received our first of two allocations, came in the month of March. $524,000 is what came in March. And this time last year, we didn't get our first disbursement on that line item until the month of April. It was a lesser amount last year, but we did adjust our budget accordingly for that line item. So a bit of a timing difference. So even if you remove that, we're still looking around $2.9 million, which is very, very encouraging for where we expect to be this time of the year. On the general fund, really, the only thing I just wanted to kind of take the time, I know we talked about 135-day enrollment numbers looking pretty steady. I just want to kind of quantify those for you since those got finalized. Our ADM in comparison to the 45th day did come down by 8.31. And then compared to the 135th day this time last year, it came down 21.9. However, the new funding formula measures the weighted pupil units. So that paints a little bit different picture for us. In comparing the 135-day weighted pupil units to the 45-day, it only came down 3.77. And then comparing our weighted pupil units to the 135-day last year, we actually increased by 54.42. And again, going back, there's really three main drivers in our categories of students as they fit in the formula. Our special ed, in terms of weighted pupil units, increased by about 50. Our vocational students, your CTE students, increased by about 58. And then the pupils in poverty, which is an add-on weighting, that increased by about 37. And then the rest was basically a negative amount for our base students. So from a funding standpoint, the good news is our weighted pupil units went up, which is the reason for the additional state aid to classrooms money that we're seeing in the current year. That's driving our revenue up this year. So wanted to just quantify that for you in terms of number of students, since you've been seeing dollars, wanted to put that in front of you as it pertains to that state aid to classrooms calculation. Other than that, very encouraged about how we're looking to finish the general fund as we move towards the end of the year. Are there any questions, general fund related?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Chair recognizes Ms. Arnold.
I just want to know, on those 58 CTE students, is that based on concentrators, completers, or just that they're in a CTE course?
My understanding is just that they're coded in Power School in CTE, and I believe to get that code, you just have to be in one course. Is that correct? I'm not sure. We just happen to have a Power School coordinator back here.
Our school board.
Looking.
They just have to be in a single course, yes.
So just one that qualifies?
And that so that gets that 1.2 weighting for those students.
Okay, and how many of those come from middle school? Do we have any students that are in PLTW that would go toward that?
I could probably pull that for you. Offhand, I don't have that in front of me, middle school.
Okay.
But I can get that.
So they're all coming from high school?
Okay, they are, okay.
Okay.
It's quicker route there.
Have we had any in prior years that was coming from the elementary, like the middle schools, like when we had our ag courses? Okay. Okay,
Wouldn't it be a different course code? This-
but if it carries high school weight, it would qualify.
Remember, to my knowledge, we don't code it. It's only not through 12, it's through but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. It has to be in night, because of the vocational. No matter if you are enrolled in 5 or 6.
Okay, just want to make sure with us getting that added weighting, we get as much,
Right.
that we kind of look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Any further questions for Mr. Moore
Thank you.
before we go into the
All right.
sales tax update?
Okay, moving on to sales tax collections. We received the collection in March in the amount of $244,897.80, which is right where we expect to be in the month of March. March and April is typically some of the lower collections throughout the calendar year. Still a strong collection for what we've seen in past years, so feel good about the way that's coming in. Of course, roughly $49,000 of that going towards property tax relief to help pay off debt, and then $196,000 roughly available for capital use of that, so of that $244,000 collection. In comparing to last year, you can see on that far right about a little over 3% growth in comparison to the prior year, so collections appear to remain strong for us as we round out the year. Any sales tax collection questions?
I don't see any.
All right, well, I will move on to our budget update. So since our last budget update last month, we were able to get the updated house projections from the state. So everything in here that I have in front of you is based on those house projections. We have heard a little bit out of the Senate, and I'll touch on that towards the end of the presentation to discuss there, but everything here is based on what's come out of the House so far. So the budget here, what I have in front of you is a total budget of $30,082,750. And you can see that within the budget summary link I have there for you. But that constitutes a total increase of $1,274,000 or a 4.42 budget increase. Some of the highlights in this budget, teacher pay being one of the priorities. We have proposed a $2,000 increase for teachers across the board. So that would take our starting teacher salary to $48,820. And then also as it relates to teacher pay, we do have in there an additional 27th and 28th steps on our teacher salary schedule. That continues our initiative to get those number of steps up, and that adding those 2 steps gets us in line with the new state minimum schedule that has been approved both in the House and the Senate as well. So that's where we are on the teacher side. Again, we touched on the past two meetings, the health insurance premium increase at 11.8%. On the employer side, we have that in there. We do have a step increase for all employees, so the teachers get that as well as all other staff. For our support staff, we have proposed a 4% pay increase for the support staff, and then a 2% increase for the administrative staff. And then lastly, on the payroll-related staffing side, we have 5 new FTEs into the general fund budget. That consists of 3 positions that are already in the district transitioning from ESSER, 1 teacher at the middle school, a teacher at the high school, and a teacher at Star Elementary. And then the 2 other are new FTEs, 1 being a new gen ed teacher at Flat Rock, and then a special ed teacher at Flat Rock. And then we did have 1 district level administrative position that was essentially converted into a mental health counselor. So that's not a new FTE, but a different role in that staff member, in staffing wise here in the district. And then we were able to provide funding in this budget for elementary after-school programs. We feel like that's a priority for our district, and our elementary school principals really wanted to keep that going. So we do have funding for that program, and I'll touch on a little bit of the details in that program in a few slides here. And then lastly, about $105,000 is what we have in non-payroll budget increases. Large majority of those are just cost increases, whether it be supplies or services that we've bid out, or just that we've seen just go up over time, just trying to keep up with those costs. Let's see. This is the kind of the details that constitute that $1,274,000 budget change, having it kind of summarized on the funding side between state, local, and what we call other funding. And then on the payroll side, between payroll, non-payroll, and the fund balance reserve. And that's something I'll touch on here in a moment as well. On the state funding, that $1,090,000, that's largely made up of that state aid to classrooms line item we talked about. One change from last month is once we got the updated projections from the state, they were slightly lower than what I anticipated. And that's largely due to the projections the state is doing for the charter schools. So basically, the only factor really that changed that we didn't foresee is the increase in the statewide weighted pupil units, which in essence reduces our portion of the total pot. And they tell me that's due to the number of new charter schools opening up next year, wanting to kind of be conservative on that end, and how it affects every district in the state. That, as well as a portion of the health insurance funding being redistributed to being partially funded through the state aid to classrooms, and then partially funded through the retiree insurance line item. So that's another cause for that line item amount being slightly different as well on the state side. And then, of course, we've discussed a little bit about the Tier 3 funding being an increase there, that we received that projection from Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. We've talked about that as well. And then a little bit of funding for the bus driver, the mandated bus driver increase as well. On the local funding, the $475,000 consists of $450,000 in the ad valorem taxes, being the increased value of a meal, being up to $33,000 roughly. And then to reiterate this, none of this requires a millage increase, no millage increase here in this proposed budget. And then the other 25 of that 475 is from the county equalization funding line item that the dollars flow through, and then they get distributed equally to all 5 Anderson school districts. And then that other funding there, that negative $291,000, that consists of the funding that had come in the past prior to that food service fringe guidance. We got the funding that would come in from food service to help offset some of that. So that funding is gone since that requirement has changed. And then also the ESSER indirect cost that we had budgeted in prior years is being removed since ESSER funds are going away in September. And on the payroll side, a lot of those payroll items there, I detailed on the prior slide about everything that kind of builds towards that 1,277,000 there, and then the 105 being non-departmental items, just a handful of increases there that we've seen through actual cost increases and some projections that we have going forward. And then the fund balance reserve, we have taken out because what we have here in front of you is a balanced budget with no excess there in an effort to build fund balance. Some notes here. So when we sent this to you, we had not yet met with Anderson 4 and 5 and AIT directors, but we did have that meeting this past Friday. Felt good about that meeting and the communication going on there. Feel like we have a good group working together. I have there that the budget is unchanged because at the moment it was, and after the discussions, I do expect there may be a small increase to that budget needed just from general pay increases because they typically mirror what Anderson 5 gives to their teachers. They're also subject to that health insurance increase as well, so I wouldn't expect it to be more than 2% or so. So maybe $15,000 possibly is my estimation at this point. We'll get those numbers down, worked out with Anderson 4 and 5 once we quantify the things that were discussed at last week's meeting. So I just wanted to put that on your radar as we move forward. And then circling back to the elementary after-school program, we structured that budget. So it's about $36,000 to fund the elementary after-school program. And we have it structured as a 15-day program that operates at an hour and a half per day. Each elementary school being allocated 1 supervisor, 10 teachers, and 2 bus drivers per location. And that's typically how we've run it in the past few years when we've funded it through ESSER. And that's typically the cost we've seen with that. So we feel like that's something we need to try to do, and we feel like we got the funds to do it. Oh, wrong way. I mentioned that we do not have fund balance reserve budgeted this year. I wanted to kind of throw this chart up there in front of you to show where our current fund balance is as it's compared to our current year budget expenditures, as well as our projected budgeted expenditures in this budget here. As you can see, we're a decent amount above that 25% we like to operate over, and also have in terms of dollars for you, almost $705,000 over that minimum for the current year expenditures and $360 almost for these projected expenditures. So we feel like we have built that fund balance up to a comfortable spot that we feel good about having a balanced budget as we move forward. The last thing, I just want to give you some timelines of some things we expect to happen as we move forward. Some of these dates have already passed us, but the full Senate is scheduled to do their budget deliberations next week. And so a lot of the things coming out of the Senate did not differ too greatly from the House. They did agree on the new state minimum teacher salary schedule being bumped up to $47,000 with those uneven increments from the current minimum to this new proposed minimum. However, they did reduce that state aid to classroom funding statewide by $30 million. So the House had it at $230 million statewide, and the Senate reduced it to $200. And I would estimate that being a hit of about $100,000 to our district, just to throw a round number out there. It'll probably be early May before we see an actual projection from the State Department to see that nailed down to the dollar, but that's my best guess at this time. The reasoning for that is there are two factors that help determine the state's budget that goes in that state-aided classroom line items. It's what their teacher-student ratio and the cost of a teacher. And the House, they adjusted the ratio and picked essentially an arbitrary amount for the cost of a teacher, whereas the Senate backed up, kept the same ratio, it's 11.2 is the ratio, and then used a specific spot on the state minimum teacher salary schedule, which I believe is a master's and 12 years of experience, to determine the cost of a teacher. So in doing that, that's what created the difference. So they're still expecting us to do the same thing as far as meeting the teacher's minimum pay, but with $30 million less on the Senate side. So there will be a conference committee to get together, and I added those dates today for you. Starting April 30th is when it's looking like it's going to be scheduled to start those deliberations to kind of find some middle ground. In our case, hopefully more towards the House version to help us out on that end. So it sounds like at the earliest, that May 7th and 9th might be our best case scenario, finding out where that's going to land. So that's really the main differences between the two House and Senate. So that's just kind of what we have looking forward to, and hopefully we'll have a little more guidance from the state level before our first budget reading. That's everything from me. What questions does the board have?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
A statement, I sure would like to get a part of that 1.5 billion that they just found sitting in a corner somewhere. Maybe they'll get off the kitty and share some with the schools on that. But the after-school program, historically, how many, I'm sure you have someone that can answer the question, historically, how many students have you had participate in that program? Or what do you anticipate to participate in the program?
Number of students.
We've had between 60 and 75 students participate.
Fantastic.
And due to the nature of it, some come and some go, so it's not like an all-in, you've got to stay for the entire program. In fact, there have been some situations where we've had to add an additional bus to get them home in time because of the participation. But I can get you hard numbers for that if you want.
I'm content with that ballpark figure. I just wanted to know around that it sounds like we've got that it's well worth the expenditure.
Yes, when we had our principal meetings, that was something that was discussed with each one, and everyone was adamant that we do what we can to keep it.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Moore?
Was that per school?
Yes, each elementary school.
At about 75?
Yes. 60 to 75 per school.
Yes, that's
Per school, that's correct.
We have 2 buses per location running after-school routes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions. Just wanted to see, what date will we get the itemized information on as far as the expenditures, for example? It'd be great. I know that we've had that information before, but seeing it side by side so that we can see, it looks like cell phones for assistant principals. Has that typically been zero in the past? Is that like a new line item?
Yes, so that for example is something new. We are transitioning our cell phone providers to it's a program, a federal program that's only offered to certain like government agencies, school districts being one. A lot of so like law enforcement use that. So we felt like that we have been asking enough of our assistant principals to justify giving them a district device. They've been doing enough outside of their regular hours to give them a device to help do their jobs, whether it be answering emails, responding to what do they call gaggle alerts for student safety needs, and also with this new, it's called FirstNet service, and it's essentially a priority signal. So in the event of emergency, you have everyone crowding to a school, we're all but guaranteed that our district devices will have their call will get out. It will not get blocked by other traffic, cell phone traffic. I know we've tested out some demos in busy places here, and it seemed to perform well. It's a cost neutral thing in terms of switching to our current carrier to this. But adding those, and then also, they have some features we're gonna explore in terms of push to talk. That'll help with the emergency management stuff, that could possibly, if all works out, could eliminate some physical radios as well. So having that and having at least 2 people in each building to have that, we felt was worth the cost.
2 additional on top of the principal.
It would
In
be
addition to-
each assistant principal, so with elementary would have the principal and the assistant principal, and then middle school has, each assistant principal now has a device. So that's how we approached it. But and then to answer your other question, we do, prior to our next budget reading, we will have, more itemized packets, as far as the budget's concerned for each board members that we'll get to you, that'll have anything hopefully that you can think of that will need to help you evaluate the budget, and that being something I can certainly add for you.
That would
That
be
helps,
great, because I think
absolutely.
it's important to see, we went from 0 there to $6,000, so that
Right.
we can, have
Right.
conversation about that. And then I noticed that we have our maintenance budget, $11,250, the additional cost there. We get information on, specifics of what that includes.
Right, and that's one of those examples I referred to with that's one that's a supply-intensive budget, and just the costs of things have just gone up. So the budget that we had a year or 2 ago doesn't quite get us as far as it does today. So that's one of those inflationary type budgets increases.
That would be good. I just left the soccer game on my way here, and, you can start seeing the black through the gold on the turf. And they were talking about the machine that, fixes
Okay.
that. Just want to make sure that we have what we need to care for our areas that,
Absolutely.
like we're supposed to, and that may already have been accounted for. Just
Okay.
want to make sure that we're utilizing those resources.
Absolutely, but I can get that for you, that's no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Can I, answer this? You're talking about the push to talk feature.
Yes.
What are we using now? We on VHF or we on 800 as far as radios,
Primarily, the radios we use are for bus communication, and all of those work through like a multi-tower system, so have the ability to.
But is it low band or high band? You don't know?
They work.
Well, I'm just saying that Larry and I both in the fire service, and they're going away from low band, going to high band. So a lot of that towers that you're gonna be operating off of, that technology's gonna be kinda going away.
Okay.
So y'all may wanna consider.
Okay.
I mean, I know the Nextel, that was 800 and it worked great, and then the military took it back, or somebody, I don't know, I loved it, but.
The guy said that it's comparable to the old Nextel services. that
Yeah.
you-
Verizon tried that for a while, and I tried them, and they didn't, it played out pretty quick, but just keep it in mind, if you do
Right.
decide to go that route, that I don't really know where we're going with our radio service. We landed 2 helicopters last night, and I had to talk through Wi-Fi through my truck on the cell phone, cause the helicopter up there couldn't hear me on the radio. It's crazy, but anyway,
But yes, that,
FirstNet's available to first responders
mhm,
as well.
well, FirstNet, is that through AT&T?
AT&T,
It
that's
is through
correct.
AT&T, but
I
it's
done
not-
tried it, it won't work in Greg's show.
Well, it's not AT&T, it's a different band of AT&T.
Oh, it is?
So
Okay.
even if you
Yes.
can't get AT&T service, the FirstNet service, like when AT&T didn't get hacked, but whatever happened and they were down for a day, FirstNet was not down.
Thank goodness I have a GMC with a Wi-Fi. I can say that. Anyway, I'm done.
With the cell phones, before we go on, I just want to ask, are the assistant principals liable? You had mentioned those gaggle alerts that come through after hours. If we provide them with a device, does that change their liability as far as after hours? Like they're notified that a gaggle alert has come through because a student has threatened to harm themselves, but that's just an example. Does that add more liability for them?
Not really. I might let Amy speak to that, but the gaggle alerts itself is monitored by gaggle. So the liability ultimately falls on gaggle, but there's a tiered approach to who gets contacted when for what. But we went away from the free service, I think it was called Bark, because Bark did not have any built-in things to monitor that. I mean, Gaggle has built-in things that if it's a certain level and it doesn't get one of us, it automatically goes to law enforcement, so that those protections are built in. It does, having the cell phone for an assistant principals allows them, easier access to it, but I don't think the liability falls on any of our administrators to read that on their off time, because that's what the Gaggle product that we have guarantees.
Okay, just would want to just get clarification on that, even if they have their email set up on that phone, that they're not responsible for something that comes in. And if we're paying for the extra service to cover that, just want to make sure that we're covered liability-wise if they get a gaggle, because you're not always near your phone.
Right.
And after hours.
And the rationale to provide them with our assistant principals kind of goes in with, we do constantly call people on their off time.
I remember.
And they answer the device, so it's only fitting that we take care of them in that way. And another thing that I think, on those phones, there's hotspots, and that allows, if internet's down, we still have access to things through the phone. And that's another thing, and Amy's probably going to speak to that some in her presentation, that we've tried to make sure we're taken care of in the effect that district internet's down.
Okay. I didn't mean to steal your thunder for your presentation.
Ask more questions, maybe other people will answer before I do.
No chance.
Any other questions? Budget related?
No other questions, but one comment that I'll address, a concern of Ms. Arnold, and remind the rest of the board that if we don't have all the information in a timely enough manner from the state and get what we need and have to, there's always the ability for us to call a special meeting to continue to dig into this before we approve a budget.
Absolutely.
Great point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the operations report from Dr. Nixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're finally wrapping up some projects and have great news to share with the board now that all the projects that we're financially responsible for have been closed out with J. Davis and MPS. So you see that how much each one of those projects we came in under budget within the scope that was first proposed. So that's a total under budget between the three projects of $186,807.56. So really proud of those projects. Great assets for our district and projects that were needed. So we're very proud of those. I did leave the place marked there for the Spring Federal Programs meeting as well. That's on May 3rd at 9 a.m. And one more reminder that includes Title I through V, well over $1 million worth of funds that go directly to our schools and support everything from our stream programs within the district to individual FTEs at some of our locations. So that will be a virtual meeting as well as a face-to-face option. So if you plan on attending, if you just read the letter that's in the appendix items, please respond to Cheryl Smith. Just send her an email and we'll make arrangements for you guys to be there. In the event that you're not able to do that, the meeting will be recorded and it will be placed on the district webpage for the public to view as well. In addition to all the most current plans are available on our district's webpage for the public to view at any time. All right, security grant. I wanted to revisit that real quick. You can see the pictures that have been added to show the lines for where security fencing will be put in place with the funding from this grant. Our pre-bid meeting is on 4/18. Plan to have those fencing bids back April 25th. So by the May meeting, we should be able to provide you with a pretty good scope of work and the actual cost for the installation of those fences. I did want to provide those pictures to mention as well. Whenever you talk about fencing in the back of the school, your mind goes to emergency evacuations and procedures. Multiple gates were built into the funding packet that was sent to the State Department. 10-foot gates are strategically placed in all those fencing designs, and we have a key plan in place to be able to provide folks in the event that they need to get outside the existing fencing that will be installed at the end of this project. And also the 70 doors total that are being rekeyed in the district, 2 storefront locks. The PO was issued for that today. Cook and Boardman, who is our partner that we work with on all of our keying issues within the district, It's 4 to 6 weeks lead time on that, so the purchase order was issued today so that those things could be on site and installed during the summer months to not interfere with instruction. Anybody have any questions on that?
Security fencing, what's the specs on that? What type of fence are you using? What's the height?
It will be 6-foot vinyl coated, black vinyl coated fencing. It will have a top rail on it, 8-gauge fencing, Schedule 40 post. Pretty much the spec that we're using for a lot of our fencing around the district moving forward. But it is a 6-foot fence. So hopefully those bids are going to come in. I got notification today. One of the vendors that plans on coming said the prices have come down, so we're encouraged by that. It's the only vendor I've ever heard that prices have come down over anything. So we'll see how well that telegraphs into the proposals whenever they send those in.
Question,
Yes, sir.
are you gonna put a new gate at Ive? I know the fence is good, the gates, all the pieces.
That's not captured by this grant. We're looking into that. And we look at the fencing everywhere whenever we do our walkthroughs with the building, but that's definitely on Mr. Gerard's radar.
I didn't think it'd be very expensive to put up just a gate, so reckon what the cost of a gate would be.
I'd hate to shoot from the hip on that. There's so many factors involved with the length and what kind of design it is.
Are y'all gonna have cameras on any of the gates where they can hit them from the office and open them, or?
No, sir. No, sir. Whenever we close our schools in after arrival in the morning, most of our vendors know to call the front office, and our SROs or an administrator goes out and opens those gates. So they're so few and far between, really, to use the funding to do something like that, to run power and run a motorized gate at this point in time. We really hadn't seen that as a priority. Until we hear back from principals saying that it is too cumbersome for them to do, we probably won't revisit that. Have any questions over the security grant?
Did we take down the fence and where the bus parking lot was at Crescent?
Yes, sir. That's gone. That's gone.
What did we do with that old fence? Are we gonna use it for anything?
Some of it was saved in the district, and the rest of it was given to the company that was contracted to take it down. It's kind of a swap off. We'll do it for a little bit less to get some of the material kind of deal.
No further questions, but one observation. I understand the point of putting, worrying about the expenses of putting motors on gates, but it's more cameras is always a good thing,
Yes, sir.
especially at access and egress points.
I don't know if Ms. Gray's gonna mention that in her presentation or not, but we actually do have additional cameras that are being placed at all the locations this summer, based on principal input.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I have one more slide.
I'm sorry.
If you don't mind.
I jumped the gun. Forgive me.
Summer projects, asbestos abatement and Sims Gym. OCA was the winning bid on that, and they came in at $49,000 to remove all the asbestos from the ceiling of that gym. In that process, while we're doing work in there, we plan on removing the existing lighting that's in there and placing it with LED lighting. It's going to give us more foot candles on the floor, and if you've been in that gym and seen the lights that are up there, they leave a lot to be desired. So hopefully in this project, whenever they finish the asbestos abatement, Crossroads Environmental will be the third party that will do the air quality monitoring and monitor the work in general. When they finish with that, we have contractors to receive the bids on that in the very near future that will be able to paint that ceiling as well. Contractors are also bidding on painting classrooms this summer. 24 classrooms are slated to be painted at Star Island Middle School. We're excited about that, to dress some of those classrooms up. Those will be turned in on April 19th at 3 o'clock, and we should be able, by the May board meeting, be able to have a comprehensive list of how many classrooms, based on the funding that we have available, will be able to be done. Wanted to revisit the HVAC project. I know that we'd mentioned that, got updates end of last week from the vendor saying that the materials and everything, there were no hiccups there, so we should be able to begin that just as soon as we get out of school. And to jog your memory, that's the replacement of 33 units at Crescent High School. And then finally, we'll be replacing a roof this summer on the gym at Crescent High School. It's 10,600 square feet. It'll be new roof complete tear-off, new roof insulation, taper insulation, two-ply modified bitumen roof assembly. VM Building Envelope Consultants will be the third party on that as well. Daniel Atwell, that we've worked with multiple projects with before. Pre-bids at 1:30 on May the 2nd. Questions are due on May the 7th by 3:30 from any of the vendors. And then the bid opening will be May 14th, 2024. So that'll be the next section of the most needed roof replacements at Crescent High School. Those are some of the projects that we already have in the hopper, and by the May meeting, I'll be able to provide you with a much more comprehensive list of what we'll be trying to work on this summer.
How much more roof after this summer are we going to be in need of replacing there at the high school?
The next immediate need would be the wing that's adjacent to 81, that's closest to 81 on the hit list due to the age and the coring information that we received from it in the initial assessment. That would be the next roof to tackle. Slightly larger than the gym, but scope and scale, it's an easy summer project, and it would be something we'd be able to tackle when students were out of the building, hopefully next summer, potentially next summer.
Any further questions for?
So that's the gym that we built 24 years ago?
Yes, sir, that's the new gym. Yes, sir.
Hard to believe, eh?
And I know, I was here whenever it was built. Time flies by.
I was here too.
But we're in much better shape as far as roofing goes. We're now able to tackle small projects instead of some of the expansive work that was done 5-7 years ago that we started. So we're in much better shape. Hey, any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Next is going to be the IT presentation from Ms. Gray.
Okay. First, I want to thank you guys for approving the position, our new position of Systems Administrator. Dane has joined our team, and he has really helped us focus on cybersecurity. That was a big push for us this year, the thing we wanted to focus on. He's just doing a great job. He's adding some email security as well as server management and some things that we'll go over. And then Logan Dixon is new to our team in the past couple of months. He replaced Rick Womack, who took a job in Georgia close to his house. He was driving about an hour here every day. But Logan is fantastic. And he's doing more of workstation and Chromebook repair, more of the customer service thing in the schools every day and handling the work orders. So we really have the best version of our team I think we've ever had. I'm going to kind of not spend a lot of time on these next few slides. This is just the number of devices that we have in our district. Number of trouble tickets, we're averaging about 4 a day, and those are things other than Chromebook repairs and password resets and things that we can do in the office. Those are the kind of things that Logan actually has to go into the schools to fix, replace a cable, fix a cracked screen, get a new laptop for a new employee, those kind of things. The next slide is the number of programs, or the programs that we manage. And when I was typing these out, I noticed that it takes up more room than it usually does. And I went back and looked. In 2021, we had 36 managed programs. This is 49. So as things move away from paper and pencil and more towards technology, we just have more and more programs that take those places to manage. And then our completed capital projects. In this past year, we are very thankful that the construction projects are over with. It was fun while it lasted, and we are excited that it's done. The boardroom AV, I will say, just to give you a little update, the bill that was introduced to live stream school board meetings has passed the Senate and moved on to the House, and I think it now rests in committee for a second reading. So as soon as they debate that, I expect that probably to pass in the next year or two. But when it does, we are set up to fully live stream our board meetings here with this setup. Another thing we did, of course, was the press box, the internet access controls, cameras, all those things. But we moved, when we were doing this construction project for the DO and the new DO and the old, redoing the old DO, we decided to go to voice over IP phones instead of a regular phone system to test it out, to see if we want to go there district-wide. It's working very well. It's a little bit of a cost savings. So this summer we plan to do that district-wide and move to a VoIP system. We did get a new intercom system at Star Elementary. And the air quality sensors, which you guys approved a year ago, I think, have been implemented at the middle school and high school. And that's given us some really interesting data. And I think the principals, and Adam probably agrees, the principals can see that data allows them to place people in certain restrooms during certain times of the day to cut down on vaping especially. So it's good to have that data. And then the security cameras, we have added here additional pan tilt zoom cameras, which the one off of this building going towards the gas station, you can zoom in so far that you can see money exchanging hands in the gas station. It's pretty interesting. So, let's see. And then completed security projects. Like I said, this was the year for cybersecurity. We really wanted to focus on that and shore up our cybersecurity posture. So we transitioned from WebRoot to Sophos, which is a different endpoint management system. It just provides us better visibility and the ability to do more policy management and add things like that on a more granular basis. We commissioned an event log analyzer server. Dane headed this up so that we get really good notifications anytime somebody gets locked out of their computer, because you never know if that's somebody trying to hack into a computer and guessing the password wrong over and over. We get those notifications anytime software is installed or uninstalled from a server, and that's always something that we're supposed to do. We don't allow anybody to install software, so we get notifications if that happens as well. We were one of the first districts to contact SLED. They offer a free service to do a tabletop reading, which is basically a kind of a pretend scenario. We had them in a couple of weeks ago. We sat in this boardroom and pretended like there was a phishing attempt and went through all of the steps that we would do, and we got really high marks on that. But they also gave us some things that we needed to fix, so we're working on that, and I think we've pretty much fixed those. And I put a link here to our incident response plan if you wanted to read it for bedtime reading. Dane also has spearheaded Duo multi-factor authentication, which is just you need 2 different ways to authenticate yourself to get into certain systems. We have implemented that so far with the principals and IT department. And then today, the assistant principals and everybody else in the district office started using Duo authentication. And that's just for employees that have sensitive information at their fingertips. We don't want anybody to be able to log in as them and get access to special ed data or student PII or anything like that. So we are we're quickly rolling it out. By the end of this month, we'll have everybody that needs to have it. Me, Dane, and Hogan have all become certified cyber liaison officers through SLED. So that was an accomplishment for us. We also added BitLocker, which is drive encryption, just in case somebody were to take their laptop to the grocery store, the fair, the airport, and lose it. If anybody tried to get into it, it would automatically encrypt that data. They can't get student data physically. They can't undo the back of it, take the hard drive out, and use it somewhere else. So we have added that. We also hired a company last year, Lockstep, and worked with them for over 6 months to do a foundational security assessment with us, where they really dug in and went through every piece of our network. And I have linked there the presentation they gave us, and we did really well. But also, they gave us some things to work on, so we're working through those things. The State Department also offered a vulnerability scan, which we did, and did well on that as well. Other projects, Missy has headed up our adoption of the EDFI standards, and this is a centralized data repository. It's a way to add data to a centralized data repository. And the benefit of that is so that data can be used, 1, for state reporting, which is important, but 2, also to basically gather all that data in one place and be able to make strategical decisions based on that. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. And every day, Missy is in there, she has to look through discrepancies and do that kind of thing, and she spends a lot of time making sure that our data is correct. The other thing that Missy is working on is final forms, which is going to improve our registration, security, and compliance, And we were real excited because it also does athletic forms. So it's going to help the athletic department a good bit. It also, there are a couple of other things that we really liked about it. One is that it translates into 127 languages. We never had that in the past, and that's becoming more of a need. This is Podium. Like I said, this is EdFi data that goes into that central repository, populates the information in Podium and Rally. And Podium just can show you all kinds of stuff. This screenshot is discipline counts. It also has attendance data. It shows you truancy numbers. Very, very easy, where in the past you would have to gather that data yourself and create your own charts and graphs. So it's very beneficial to have. Rally is more focused on test scores, but you can pull it up by grade level, by school, by district. You can compare the test scores for each individual type of test against other district scores, against other districts. So it's another good tool that takes all that data and makes it useful. And then last, we have our ongoing and upcoming projects. So we are going to continue focusing on cybersecurity because, you know, they say it's not if, but when you get hacked, and it really only takes one person. And we are just trying to be like the, you know, they say if you encounter a bear, you don't have to be that fast, just faster than the person behind you. That's kind of what everybody else is trying to do. We just want to be harder to crack than everybody else around us. We hope that somebody that's trying to get into us says this is too hard and moves on to the next person. So we're trying to make it as hard as possible to get in. And Hogan manages our firewall. Y'all, he could tell you we probably get, I know, over 1,000, maybe over 10,000 hits a day of people trying to break into our school system. We get, Hogan has spent a lot of time and has to spend a lot of time every day keeping up with the new rules, but he adds rules to our firewall, and you can very easily look in the firewall and see Russian state actors hitting one of those top rules. It goes through a line. We've got, I don't even know how many, over 50 probably at this point, but if it makes it past the first one, it goes to the second one, and you can see the count just scrolling throughout the day of all the people trying to do bad things. So Hogan does a great job of keeping them out. Right now we're working on, and everybody's getting to us, a business continuity plan by May 5th. And that is important because what that is how does our operations continue if the internet goes down, or if technology is not available for whatever reason. MGM, did y'all see where MGM got hacked last year? I think it was October of last year. So it was Black Cat, or was it Black Cat? A ransomware group that makes billions of dollars collecting ransomware. Anyways, they hit MGM by gaining access to one employee's account. They called MGM and pretended to be this employee, had gotten all this information off of Facebook and knew their wife's name, their mother's maiden name, all the things that people ask. And they called the IT department and pretended that they got locked out of their account. And IT verified, okay, you are who you say you are, changed the password. Black Cat got in and then put ransomware on MGM Grand's computers. It locked out everything that required the internet. So all of the slot machines went down. All of the key cards didn't work for the rooms. The reservation system went down. The arms that let you out of the parking lot wouldn't go up. People were stuck in the parking lots. People had just put $1,000 into the slot machine, and then all of a sudden that information was wiped out. So MGM didn't know how to determine how much money they owed people. It was huge. But the one thing that I got out of that was their employees had absolutely no idea what to do. They didn't know what to do when the internet went down. So we want everybody, every gatekeeper in our district, or thought leader actually, is going to create a business continuity plan. What happens if the internet goes down? How do you continue doing what you do? If a kid comes to check, or if a parent comes to check a kid out and you don't have power school, what do you do? If that person is at a doctor's appointment that normally would make that decision, somebody needs to have a piece of paper saying we do A, B, C, D. So we're going to be compiling that. We'll have that after May 5th. We're going to do duo multi-factor authentication again by the end of May. We are working on NIST framework alignment. We are going to do VoIP district-wide. We're replacing Chromebooks, laptops, Promethean panels, security cameras. Dr. Nixon mentioned we are doing 33 replacements, and then we're adding every school's got a budget, right, that they can spend on their security cameras. So they're going to get with me on the cameras that they need, and we'll add cameras into any kind of blind spot that they have, any needs that they have. We are implementing a new process for onboarding employees. We are going to work with SLED because SLED, again, offers this free service that I don't think everybody uses. When we talk to them, they are just peachy about coming to our district. They said, please call us. We want to come to your district anytime, because I think they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for somebody to call.
Welcome anytime.
Huh? Yeah,
You're welcome.
I know, that's what I told them. So we will use you as long as you are offering it for free. So they will do free fishing tests, they'll do training, they do the tabletop exercises, they do security assessments, all kinds of things. So we will be using those more, SLED more. We're doing some server updates, and we'll do a firewall replacement, which is a big deal, next year. And that's about it. I think that's it. Y'all have any questions?
Arnold?
Well, then I have some questions, and
Okay.
so, but if anybody else has some, you're welcome to go first.
Chair recognizes Ms. Arnold.
Okay. Just the SLED report that you referenced in there, is that available, or do you have that linked inside the
I
presentation?
don't have the SLED one linked, but I will. I can email it to you, or I can link it in here if you want it all in one place.
Be great to see. And just, when did you and the team become certified liaison officers?
Hogan and I have been certified for probably two and a half years now. Dane just got certified this year.
What does that include?
Well, it basically allows us better access to the services that SC Kick, which is kind of the shortened name for it, offers. We did have to do a little bit of training. We are invited to their webinars. We're invited to conference calls that they have weekly where they go through new threats and that kind of thing. So it's really better access.
Okay, well, y'all definitely have been busy. It's
Yeah.
evident to see. The document that you created, the Google document, or your team created, cybersecurity policy and response plan.
Yes.
Is that a work in progress? Is that something?
It is, and we evaluate it. It's on my calendar to evaluate it every year because things change. And when those business continuity plans come in, we'll add those. I'll link them. But things change all the time. In fact, ransomware went on there several years ago because it wasn't really a thing. When we had privacy, what happens if there's a data leak? Because that's always been a threat, you know. Somebody accidentally prints out a paper with students' names, birthdays, and, you know, email addresses on it and leaves it on their desk. That's a privacy violation. So we have always had a plan for that, but as more and more things come up, we have to add it.
Okay, and then Podium, heard a good bit about Podium and Rally. How many people have access to Podium in the district right now?
I have access, Missy has access. I think it's just us two. Yeah.
And I know that Rally will eventually replace the Enrich system. Are we one of the districts that's gonna continue a 6-month contract or 18 months? Or are we going straight?
That email came out, it was in a memo from the State Department, I believe, very recently. But that's not a decision that I make, so I'm not sure. I think that would be maybe, have y'all decided?
For special education records and for, other things we use Enrich for, we also use Enrich for our 504 programs. We will, maintain, read-only rights to all of our information and data that's been maintained in Enrich while we move towards SC Educator, which is the new program. And then we'll kind of see where that gets us, so we have everything we were, used to, well, been using, and we move into our new system, have access to those, and we'll figure out where we want to go next.
Okay. I knew that would be an additional cost, so just wondered if we had pricing on moving over to
Getting
SC
prices on
plan.
those, where there's different levels of what they can, give us access to, I guess you'd say. So I'm getting all that from the sales reps, so we can look at that closer.
And look for the implementation to take place next year? Is the state on schedule with that?
We're supposed to go dark for the whole month of June, which means we have access to nothing. And then, July is when they say, but they don't mean July 1, they just say July, so I can't really answer what we'll have access to. I know we'll have all of our records that we've maintained up to that point through Enrich. There's some, to talk to, the state may provide some of that, so financial support for us to maintain those Enrich records. So hopefully they will come off and give us access to those things. We won't have to pay as much, but, we may be working on paper copies of things when the school, I would not be surprised if we weren't working on paper copies of things when the school year rolls around, if need be, and then add it to the SC Educator or whenever we gain access.
Okay, and just the last thing, this is just for knowledge, did MGM get their money back?
No, it cost them $100 million. They didn't pay the ransom. I think the ransom, I think it was less than 30 million. They did not pay that ransom, and then ended up costing them $100 million in lost revenue. Caesar's Palace also got hacked. They paid the ransom. None of their data got leaked, and they were operational within 5 minutes. So, FBI says not to pay the ransom, but it always has to be a business decision. If I were them, I would have paid it too, so.
I mean, that just speaks to the importance of y'all's role. So from me, and I know from the board too, we appreciate what y'all do every day to keep our data safe within the district.
Well, I appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. Mr. Watt, I believe you had a question. Did you have
No, just thank you.
Mr. Holbrook, did you have a question? Any further questions? Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is, need to hear from the Policy Committee regarding policy JICFB Gavin's Law.
The policy committee just recommends the policy as written.
So you're recommended, it's a motion from the committee to accept?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Coming from a committee, it doesn't need a second, so is there any discussion? All in favor of accepting policy JICFB Gavin's Law? Any opposed? None? All in favor. Okay, and then the policy GBEBE. Is this a motion as well from the committee?
Policy committee recommends it as written, yes.
Fantastic. Again, any discussion on that then?
Mr. Chairman, just to point out, there's not a whole lot of discussion because we're following the sample policy by the school board, so there wasn't a whole lot to it.
And they're basically the same policy. They're written the same. It just one covers students and one covers staff.
And one covers staff, so.
Any other questions or discussion? None? All in favor? Unanimous? All righty, the appendix items you should have had in your packets as well about the federal programs planning meeting. Do you want to speak on that?
No, Dr. Nixon, I think, has already spoken to it. We just wanted to remind you of the date. And also that gives us documentation that it's another way we advertise that the meeting's happening.
Fantastic. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive
Mr.
session.
Chairman, if I could, I got some comments I'd like to make. I just want to give a quick report on the South Carolina School Board Association had day at the Capitol this past Wednesday, and there was 125 board members from across the state had attended this particular event. I was not there, but I have talked to Scott Price, the director at the School Board Association. He gave me a report on that. So it worked out great because this goes back to some of the budget. I started to say this when Matthew was talking about the budget, but the issue that school board members have been talking about across the state about school board members being able to participate in the South Carolina State Insurance Program. There was Senator Shane Martin had a proviso added to the budget. The Finance Committee was scheduled to discuss that proviso this past Wednesday, and we had about 20 board members sitting in on that meeting when they were discussing that, and they decided to push that vote. They did not vote Wednesday. They decided to push it out to the floor, to the legislative floor for an entire vote on the whole thing. Scott thought that seemed like that was a victory, so I just wanted to give a report on that. And I know you sent out some information asking about that also.
Yes, Senator Martin's office has been provided with information that our board, that reflects on our board. So I will entertain a motion to enter executive session to deal with personnel matters and contractual matters. We have a motion from Mr. Watt, second from Mr. Holbrook. All in favor? Dennis, fantastic. Thank y'all.